What sparked the conflict in Iraq? In 2003, the United States launched a military invasion of Iraq, citing the need to eliminate weapons of mass destruction and to combat terrorism following the September 11th attacks. This intervention led to the toppling of Saddam Hussein's regime, but it also ignited a protracted conflict that would reshape the region and have lasting implications for Iraq and its people. As we reflect on Iraq 20 years after the invasion, it is crucial to understand the complexities of its journey through war, reconstruction, and ongoing challenges. The aftermath of the invasion has seen a struggle for stability, with sectarian violence, political turmoil, and the rise of extremist groups complicating the path to peace. Today, Iraq stands at a crossroads, grappling with the legacies of its past while striving for a brighter future. This video aims to provide an informative overview of Iraq's current state, highlighting the resilience of its people and the importance of acknowledging the lessons learned over the past 2 decades. By examining Iraq's historical context and its ongoing struggles, we can better appreciate the significance of its journey and the hope that lies ahead for this resilient nation. Before the U.S. invasion in 2003, Iraq was under the brutal regime of Saddam Hussein, characterized by a severe lack of political freedom and widespread oppression. Hussein's government maintained power through fear, employing secret police and violent repression to silence dissent. Political opposition was not tolerated, leading to a climate of fear where citizens lived under constant surveillance. Human rights abuses were rampant, with reports of torture, extrajudicial killings, and mass executions of perceived enemies of the state. Additionally, the impact of international sanctions imposed in the 1990s further exacerbated the suffering of the Iraqi people. These sanctions, intended to pressure Hussein's regime, led to significant shortages of food, medicine, and essential services, resulting in widespread poverty and a deteriorating healthcare system. The oppressive atmosphere permeated daily life as families struggled to meet basic needs while living in fear of government reprisals. Citizens faced not only the threat of violence from the state, but also the dire consequences of economic hardship. This grim reality set the stage for the complexities that would unfold following the invasion, as Iraqis sought to navigate the challenges of a regime that had long stifled their rights and aspirations. The immediate aftermath of the U.S. invasion in 2003 saw the swift downfall of Saddam Hussein's regime, which collapsed within weeks as coalition forces advanced into Baghdad. The rapid military success led to a sense of euphoria among many Iraqis, who initially viewed the invasion as a liberation from years of oppression. There was a palpable optimism regarding the potential for democratic reforms and a new beginning for the nation. Many citizens envisioned a future where they could participate in a democratic process, free from the fear and brutality that had characterized Hussein's rule. This hopeful sentiment was further amplified by President George W. Bush's declaration of mission accomplished aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, which symbolized the perceived success of the military operation. However, this announcement would soon be met with skepticism as the reality on the ground began to shift. The initial optimism quickly gave way to chaos and uncertainty, as the power vacuum left by Hussein's ousting led to rising sectarian tensions, violence, and the emergence of insurgent groups. The complexities of rebuilding a nation and establishing a stable government became evident, marking the beginning of a tumultuous period in Iraq's history that would challenge the hopes of its people. Following the U.S. invasion of Iraq, significant planning failures emerged that would have lasting repercussions for the country. One of the most critical missteps was the decision to disband the Iraqi military, which left hundreds of thousands of trained soldiers without jobs or a sense of purpose. This move not only stripped Iraq of its security forces but also fueled resentment and instability, as many former military personnel became disillusioned and turned to insurgency. Additionally, the de-Baathification process aimed at removing members of Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath Party from positions of power further weakened state institutions. While intended to dismantle the remnants of the oppressive regime, this policy inadvertently eliminated experienced bureaucrats and professionals, leading to a vacuum in governance and exacerbating the chaos. As a result, the country witnessed the emergence of armed groups and militias that filled the security void, contributing to a rapid collapse of law and order. The combination of these planning failures created an environment ripe for violence and sectarian conflict, undermining the initial goals of establishing a stable and democratic Iraq. The consequences of these decisions would reverberate throughout the nation, complicating efforts for recovery and reconciliation in the years to come. Following the invasion, Iraq's new political system was largely designed by a coalition of exiled Iraqis and American officials, aiming to establish a democratic framework. This system was characterized by a sectarian power-sharing arrangement, intended to ensure representation for the country's diverse ethnic and religious groups, including Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds. While this approach aimed to promote inclusivity, it also entrenched sectarian divisions, leading to a political landscape where loyalty to one sect often overshadowed national interests. This fragmentation fostered an environment ripe for corruption, as political leaders prioritized their sectarian affiliations over effective governance. The resulting patronage networks allowed for widespread nepotism and bribery, undermining public trust in government institutions. Moreover, the emphasis on sectarian representation often led to gridlock, as competing factions struggled for power and resources, stalling essential reforms and services. As a consequence, governance weakened and the state became increasingly unable to address the needs of its citizens. The design of Iraq's political system, while well-intentioned, ultimately contributed to ongoing instability and disillusionment among the populace, complicating efforts to build a cohesive and functional nation in the years following the invasion. Corruption within the Iraqi government has become a pervasive issue, significantly impacting the lives of ordinary citizens. Political elites often exploit state resources for personal gain, prioritizing their interests over the needs of the populace. This systemic corruption manifests in various sectors, particularly in health and public services, where funds intended for essential services are misappropriated or siphoned off. For instance, reports have highlighted instances where contracts for medical supplies and infrastructure projects were awarded to companies linked to political figures, resulting in substandard services and inadequate facilities. In the health sector, patients frequently face shortages of medicine and equipment, while public hospitals struggle to provide basic care due to embezzlement and mismanagement of funds. The consequences of such corruption are dire, as it directly affects the quality of life for ordinary Iraqis, who often endure long wait times for medical treatment and lack access to essential services. This erosion of trust in government institutions fosters a sense of disillusionment among citizens, who feel abandoned by a system that prioritizes the enrichment of a few over the welfare of the many. Ultimately, corruption undermines Iraq's potential for recovery and development, perpetuating cycles of poverty and instability. Iran's role in shaping Iraq's political landscape has been significant, particularly in the context of their historical relationship, which was notably strained during the Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988. This brutal conflict fostered deep animosities, yet it also laid the groundwork for Iran's subsequent influence in Iraq following the U.S. invasion in 2003. In the aftermath, Iran strategically supported various political parties and militias, particularly those aligned with Shiite Islam, such as the Badr organization and Asaib al-Haq. This backing has allowed Iran to extend its influence over Iraq's political framework, effectively positioning itself as a key player in the country's governance. However, this influence has raised concerns regarding Iraq's sovereignty, as many Iraqis perceive Iranian involvement as an infringement on their national autonomy. The presence of Iranian-backed militias has also contributed to ongoing instability, exacerbating sectarian tensions and complicating efforts to establish a unified national identity. As Iran continues to exert its influence, the implications for Iraq's political stability remain profound, with the potential to hinder the country's ability to forge an independent path and address the needs of its diverse population. Iraq currently faces a myriad of security challenges that threaten its stability and the safety of its citizens. Ongoing threats from militias, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS continue to plague the nation. as these groups exploit the power vacuums and sectarian divisions that persist in the aftermath of the US invasion. Despite the territorial defeat of ISIS, the group remains active, conducting insurgent attacks and attempting to regroup in rural areas. The presence of various militias, some of which are backed by Iran, complicates the security landscape further. While these militias often fill gaps left by the Iraqi security forces, providing a semblance of protection in certain regions, they can also undermine state authority and contribute to violence. The lack of effective governance exacerbates these security issues, as weak institutions struggle to maintain law and order, leading to a climate of impunity. Corruption and political infighting hinder the government's ability to address the root causes of insecurity, leaving citizens vulnerable to both extremist violence and militia control. As Iraq grapples with these multifaceted challenges, the path to a secure and stable future remains fraught with obstacles, necessitating comprehensive reforms and a unified national strategy to restore peace. The recent protests in Iraq, particularly those that erupted in 2019, highlighted widespread discontent with government corruption, poor public services, and a lack of economic opportunities. These demonstrations saw thousands of Iraqis take to the streets, demanding significant reforms and accountability from their leaders. However, the government's violent response to these protests, which included the use of live ammunition and tear gas, resulted in numerous casualties and further fueled public outrage. Amidst this turmoil, Muqtada al-Sadr emerged as a key figure in the reform movement, leveraging his influence to rally support for the protesters' demands. Al-Sadr, a prominent Shiite cleric, has positioned himself as a champion of the people, calling for an end to corruption and the establishment of a more representative government. Despite the momentum generated by the protests, reformers face significant challenges in the current political climate. The entrenched interests of political elites coupled with the influence of powerful militias create formidable obstacles to meaningful change. Additionally, the ongoing sectarian divisions and the lack of a cohesive strategy among reform advocates complicate efforts to unify the populace around a common agenda. As Iraq navigates this complex landscape, the path to reform remains uncertain and fraught with difficulties. In this video, we explored the lasting impact of the US invasion on Iraq's political landscape, highlighting how the initial military success led to a series of complex challenges that continue to affect the nation today. We examined the rapid downfall of Saddam Hussein's regime, the subsequent planning failures, and the design of a political system that, while intended to foster democracy, ultimately entrenched sectarian divisions and corruption. The role of external influences, particularly Iran, was also discussed, illustrating how these dynamics have further complicated Iraq's sovereignty and stability. Additionally, we addressed the ongoing security challenges posed by militias Al-Qaeda and ISIS, as well as the recent protests demanding reform and accountability from the government. As we reflect on the complexities of Iraq's situation, it becomes clear that understanding its journey over the past 2 decades is crucial for grasping the current realities faced by its people. We encourage you to engage with this content by subscribing, liking, and sharing the video as we continue to delve into the intricate issues surrounding Iraq and its path forward. Your support helps us bring more insightful discussions to light, fostering a deeper understanding of this vital topic.